You know what we're doing here is we're pouring some of the products out into these clear beakers because what we're going to talk about today is abrasive technology. Mike Phillips with Autogeek.com, and I've got Tunch Goren, and he is the founder and head chemist for 3D Products. And there is a lot of confusion out there and a lot of just lack of knowledge about what it takes to remove defects out of paint without leaving a defect in at the same time. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about abrasive technology. I've poured some of the 3D speed. What did you pour into your beaker over here?
I put 501, the cutting compound.
Okay. And the thing that these got in common is they both have the ability to remove a defect without leaving their own defect. So let's talk about abrasive technology.
Okay.
And I know you have a lot to share because you manufacture all your own, what do you call them?
We actually do our own calcination. We take the raw material, basically, okay. And I don't think there's any other company in the world that does that as a detailer,
okay.
Detailing company
sure.
Or manufacturer that takes it from that stage to a finished product like this you see in the jar.
So let's go ahead and let's just dive into this deep and let's start at the beginning, but only share what you want to share because you know it's a cutthroat industry out there. But let's start. When we talk about abrasive technology, usually at first, some sort of mineral or raw material is derived or mined out of the ground, correct?
Right.
Okay, so once that raw material is mined from the ground, then it's somehow transported to somebody else, but in your case, it comes right to you, right?
Right to us,
okay,
yes.
So that's where we're going to start. You manufacture your own abrasive technology from the raw material in every stage of the process.
That's correct. For example, abrasive technology is, I can make it very simple to explain myself. For example, you have, let's say, popcorn, take the corn.
Okay.
And corn is very hard, right?
Yes.
So if you take corn, a bunch of it in your hands, and put it on the piano, which is ebony, soft,
Soft paint.
and then you rub it against, you're going to put a lot of scratches.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be buffing out a piano.
So the piano will be scratched all over. But if you take that popcorn and calcine it, which is in our case calcine it, but in the case pop it, in the oven.
So heat it up.
Heat it up.
Okay.
And that changed the character and the shape of the kernels.
Yeah,
right?
It went from a hard seed to a big fluffy poof of something you can eat.
Right.
Popcorn.
So then you take that same popcorn and put it on the piano. You wouldn't put that much scratches. Maybe you may have even a chance to shine it,
Yeah, but the analogy is you've changed the physical
more
characteristics
exactly.
of what was something that was very hard in a raw material form by modifying it through a process.
Exactly. Okay. So this modification is called calcination.
Okay.
So I spent 30 years of my life trying to come up with a good compound.
Okay.
And back in the early 90s and the late 80s, everybody else, as much as I know, that used the silica, which is not good for health. As you know, it creates sarcosis, because it flies in the air, in the lungs. And a lot of people use kaolin powders or, I would say, aluminum oxide, but off the shelf.
Off the shelf. Just raw materials you can buy from a
big
supplier.
suppliers.
Exactly.
So what happens is, you'll never, ever get a true paint correction with those. Because no matter how micronized you go to submicron, you will still put a scratch. Because a hologram is a scratch.
Yes.
Micromarring is a scratch.
Exactly.
So all these scratches come because of the shape of that submicron even. I could have a product 5 microns that won't scratch, versus a product that is submicron or half a micron that will scratch. So imagine taking a glass, shuttering, you have sharp edges.
Okay.
So when you do that, you will scratch.
Yes.
You make it more finer, it will scratch less, but it will do a different scratch.
Yeah.
So the scratch goes forever. Even though you go to a 0.1 micron, you will still scratch. That's what's called the holograms. And So those are old school. So I said, how can I do better? How can I do better? So this was bothering me a lot. And there were some leaders in the industry, especially in the body shop market, way ahead of us, you know. And that was my passion to get to that point. So I knew that in this business, it takes two to tango. You have to have a good powder. You have to have a good formulation. You can't have just good powder and expect a good result.
No carrying agent, nothing to embody the powder in.
Exactly. Also to make it non-stick.
Easy wipe off.
Easy wipe off. Not so many powders.
So there's no dusting as you're
no
buffing.
Dusting.
Yeah.
You have to have a good open time.
Yep.
Sometimes, you know, you put a good lubrication to a powder. Yeah, you don't have any dust. You don't have any. You have a great open time, but you know what? It doesn't cut. So the agent kind of makes it slippery, so the powder doesn't do any good.
Gotcha.
So
you
the
over-lubricate the surface,
yeah.
so the abrasive can't do its job.
Yeah, so you have to have a good combination. And it's very hard to focus on that because technically, Mike, when you create a true paint correction, you're actually scratching the surface to come up with a good, and that's not easy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of companies can do a lot of detailing product, good degreases, good soaps, good shampoos, but this is the hardest to.
Oh, man after my own heart. You know, I tell that to people all the time. You know, in this day and age, because of the internet, anybody can launch their own brand. You know, Mike's Compounds, car washes, and waxes. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, when people do this, the degreasers, the vinyl dressing, the tire shine, the wax, the spray detailer, the clay lube, all those products work pretty good. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to anything that's going to be working on paint, that would be the compounds, the polishes, and the AIOs or the cleaner waxes, the things with abrasives, that's where they fall down because they don't have good abrasive technology. And as you're explaining, not only the abrasive technology, they don't have a good carrying agent that actually allows the abrasive technology to do what it wants to do. And because you brought this up, mm-hmm. the first published article I ever wrote is in 1994.
Yeah, I read that.
It's called How to Polish Paint. And I think in the first paragraph I said,
Abrasive Technology, you said, right?
Well, no, this is a different article.
Different? Okay.
What I just threw it out there says polishing paint is scratching paint. Mm-hmm. And that sounds wrong, but what I meant to say was I was trying to get people's attention, but what I meant was polishing paint is abrading paint. And
kind of leveling it.
Leveling it.
Yeah.
And then the art form is how can you do it in such a way that you can remove defects by abrading, but not leave any defects when you're done.
Exactly.
And that's how you create a show car finish. And that's what you're talking about here. You took it upon yourself, instead of to just buy other people's raw materials, to take the raw materials and modify them to your expectations, to your standards, to create what we see here in front of us right now.
Right. And I knew that was dead end, you know. We can't get it off the shelf. There's huge companies out there selling in like cement bags, you know. You buy it by the pallet or the big bags, you know.
Yes.
And then you make it into the compound and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And how it works, or it's an illusion, because they could put fillers in it. Mm-hmm. So what happens is you may end up with a good job, but after a few washes,
yep.
especially in the body shops, you know, when people go to a body shop, they pick up their car, they're happy that the car is fixed, they go home, they take it to a car wash a few weeks later, and then they see that the door doesn't look the same color as the rest of the car is, because the rest of the car is older and the door has just been painted, for example. That's where the problem starts. They think that the car wash did the scratch. The car wash blames it on the body shop because originally they put a covering wax on the car
mm-hmm.
that
it wore off.
That hid off all the sand scratches.
Yep.
So because of the sanding. So what's important about the powders, you know? The aluminum oxide is one of the hardest and also the safest. I mean, we put it in our mouth, you know? Dentists use aluminum oxide. You put in toothbrush,
okay.
I mean, in toothpaste.
Toothpaste, okay.
So
it's very safe.
Very safe, very safe. And then what happens is we actually make the aluminum oxide.
Okay.
You know, we just don't buy the powder. We just make it from raw material.
Okay.
We calcine it, change the structure. And what is important is the porosity is important. I don't know, I should explain porosity is like, you could have a surface like, you know, the ladies or file their
Yes,
feet
yeah,
or whatever.
fingernail
With
file.
yeah,
Yep.
or file their feet with a stone, you
Yeah,
know.
the stone, yes.
If that same stone, which is a very light stone, you
Mm-hmm.
know, was a very smooth surface, you wouldn't be able to,
Wouldn't do anything. Yeah.
it would just slip, you know. So the porosity is that has pores. So you created, the second thing is the surface area. You create a bigger surface area. From one little particle, we have lab equipment, which I will give you a tour one day, you know, and I would love to do a video on that. So we kind of measure the particle's surface area.
Okay.
How big is the surface area is. We're talking about micron level here. Micron is 1,000th of 1 millimeter. 1 millimeter is this little,
Yeah.
so divide that into 1,000, you won't even see the powder.
Smaller than a single hair.
Oh yeah, way smaller, way smaller. So what happens in the lab, we have a machine that measures that.
Okay.
So then the softness matters. How hard, how soft the aluminum oxide is.
Does that affect its breakdown rate under
Yes.
pressure?
And then, last but not least, is the particle distribution is very important.
Okay.
How
So,
tight it is, you know?
Gotcha.
You don't want particles, the chart to be like that, because that shows the very small ones, which will fill up your pad. You have very large particles which will scratch the paint. You want this as tight as possible,
very uniform.
very uniform. So the medium particle distribution should be very uniform. If they're all 1 micron, there should be majority, 97% should be 1 micron. And that maybe 0.2%, 1% could be the smaller, and the 1% could be the larger, but not too much.
But overall, very
Overall,
uniform.
if it's tight, that's better. Imagine like you have a bunch of big particles, you know, let's say, and then you have one big one sticking out. That's going to create the scratch, right? So you
Yes.
don't want that. You
Yeah.
want everything to be uniform on the
Gotcha.
car.
Okay.
So some of the big companies, they want to push too much of sandpaper. And they try to do it finer and finer and finer sandpaper. Well, that's kind of a dead industry, if you ask me. If you are sanding the cars, which is this is more our body shop line, this is more our detailing line, and I'll explain you why there is a difference. Because the body shops sand the cars.
Yes.
Almost every car comes out of the paint, they have to sand it
They
down.
sand it to remove orange peel, surface
the dust,
imperfections,
dust,
dirt nibs, modeling,
Exactly.
just things that don't look right to you. So they got to do a sanding to flatten it out, and then the compounding is to pull the sanding marks out to restore gloss and clarity.
Exactly. So when they do that, they want to use as little as possible time, because
Yes.
the money they get from the insurance company is very little about the finishing of the part
Yep.
of the car. And most of the body shops complain that that shows the most of their work.
Yeah.
I mean, they spend almost a week on a car, or sometimes month on a car, to getting parts and weld it and put it on and take it off, and then they end up having half an hour to finish off that
Yeah.
$10,000 job, and looks like crap.
The customer doesn't see all the prep work.
No, they don't
just
care.
see the final results.
That's
and the
where-
insurance don't pay for that.
No,
It pays for the
unfortunately.
grunt work.
So our motto has always been, which is our registered trademark, is called detailing made simple. So we're trying to make simple. So we came up 2 groups of product. This is a lesser expensive, you know. It's still 2-step, cut and polish basically. And then we have the other one, heavier cut and faster finish. So these 2 products are doing exactly the same work, same result. This got faster job done. So now, why I talked about sandpaper is because sandpaper, you cannot go forever. This is actually a liquid sandpaper, you know, basically.
Basically.
Because a sandpaper is a paper that there's sand on it, right? I mean,
Abrasives.
powders,
Yeah.
abrasives. So at one point, you have to make sure that abrasives stay on the paper.
Yes.
So you have to put some kind of a glue.
Yes.
Now, how far you can do that? So let's say this is the granule and you have it. If you put too much, you cover the paper, sand altogether.
Yeah.
If you put too little, then
The abrasives come off.
come off real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
So there's a limit, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can only go so far. So we say use less paper, also less compound. So two-step, even one paper from 1500, you can jump on, finish to a great result. Maybe if you're really a high-end body shop or whatever, you can use 1500, 2500 and jump 1, 2, you're done. So the abrasive technology, before we finish on that, is, as I said, aluminum oxide, the porosity and all these good stuff is very important. But also, what's important is how fast you will get the results. Now, the shape of the glass that I was telling you is always sharp.
Yes.
The break is pointed.
Yes.
Ours is not.
Oh.
Is not. I mean, I'm not giving away too much because it's not hard to get to what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Ours look like a coral.
Okay.
You know, when you look under microscope,
Yeah.
you'll see it looks like a coral shape. It has got these like pellets, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's a different shape. And that shape is the secret in the sauce, you know?
Okay.
As well as the how to make that sauce into a compound is the second. As I said, 2 to tango,
Sure, yeah.
a good formulation
Yeah.
with a good base.
Yes.
So from that powder base, we have created all these other items. Now, why would I say we have 505 for a body shop? Or because 505 is kind of our speed without the silicone.
Gotcha.
But it's
Body shop safe.
Body shop safe. That's why it says body shop safe here.
Yes.
And this product was very hard for me to make because I needed that silicone to come off easy and all that. And I needed a little bit more correction because it's in the body shop, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Why? So they do in the body shop, if they painted, let's say, the car, only the door, for example, but the rest of the car has got all these hairline scratches.
Yeah.
The customer will not be happy after a wash
Yeah.
if you waxed all the car because the car door will stick out like a sore thumb,
Yeah.
you know.
It's going to look better than the rest of the body panels.
Yeah.
Because they got
So-
sanded and buffed.
Exactly.
The rest of the car just got wiped down or washed.
This blends the rest of the car
Okay.
as well as waxing the car and also waxing the panel that you just finished without the silicone.
So it doesn't contaminate the body shop, but it creates a uniform look. Customer's going to be happy.
Exactly, because they will have the rest of the car paint corrected as well.
Yes.
So it's a little bit, I would say, more efficient than the speeds cleanings portion. Whereas, why do we separate these two from this green line is because detailers, as you know, more than 90% doesn't sand the car.
No. Yeah. Shouldn't be sanding.
Shouldn't be.
Paint's thin.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
if they have a very, let's say, a car with full of swirl marks and full of, you know, dirt from the street or little minor scratches, whatever,
Yeah.
one does exactly the same thing with only one product.
Yes.
All you have to do is just change the pad.
Change the pad. More aggressive
Use
cut, use a more
aggressive
aggressive pad.
pad.
For finishing, use a softer pad.
That's it.
Okay.
So that's why we try to make their life, because, you know, I used to see in the 80s, 90s, you know, like in the garage, oh, this is good for black cars.
Yeah.
This is good for light color cars. This is good for ceramic paints.
Yeah.
This is good for conventional paints. This is for, you know what, they had like 20 different compounds in their arsenal, and
Yeah.
you know, it's just waste of money, and especially
it's confusing to the end
confusing.
user.
And the
Yeah.
mobile detailers are always on the road.
Yep.
They leave the caps open. They have to throw it away, and all that. This one, no matter what color car you have, no matter what type of paint you have, just change the pad, do the job.
But that's because the abrasive technology
Same
works.
basis in that,
Yeah.
yes.
So, and not to give away any of your secrets, but kind of just bringing this back to you make all your own abrasive technology. You
Yes.
buy the raw material, no matter if it's for body shops.
When I say raw,
yeah,
I'm talking about really raw material.
really raw, right out of the ground.
Yes.
Okay. And but anyway, so you spent so many years doing this, but taking the raw material, modifying it, and then also modifying the formula that embodies it to create these compounds that have the ability to remove defects without leaving their own defect behind. And that's what separates you from all the other compounds and polishes and AIOs on the market today.
Right. And also one other thing that I enjoy doing, because that's what I do most of my time, because I have this facility under my hand, I can make samples all day long, keep on making it better and better. For example, this year alone, I think I have done 890 samples.
Okay, that's a lot.
That's a lot, So and plus you have to make that sample to be tested as well. So we have a constant people testing samples every day, as we speak. Whoever wants to California, we'll show them how we do it. It's a constant testing. Now, if we were to buy the powders from other people, we don't have that chance. Whatever they come up with in a year or two is what the best, and my competition will have the exact same powder.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make us different from anybody else.
Gotcha.
So that's why we said, you know what, to do this better, we gotta have our own Kobe beef, our own farm, to make our best burgers. You know what I mean? So it's
so your new manufacturing facility, that's in California,
right?
Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
It's north of Los Angeles County.
How large is it?
It's 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
And we used to have this facility shared with our warehouse before, but now we moved the warehouse to another building.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another 30,000 square feet. So we are basically in this facility 40,000. Plus we have, of course, the 3D facility.
Sure.
And that makes the rest of all our products. And the facility is also totally AQMD approved, EPA approved, industrial waste disposal permits. We have all the permits, and we are probably, I would say, 99% Prop 65 compliant.
Which only means something to people in California.
I know, but
what does that mean, though?
Okay, what it means is there's no absolutely remotely any carcinogen products.
Oh, okay.
Or anything that will cause
so very
hazard.
safe
for
the end user.
I mean, I don't want to mention name, but one of the largest coffee shops in the country, even their facility has to put a sign on their door that this facility might, even Disneyland has that sign.
Okay.
This facility might have things known to be carcinogen. They have to put that sign. If you don't have it, you don't have to put it.
Yeah.
So we put Prop 65 compliant. Now, why is only California? Does that mean that those people have to live longer? This applies to anybody, anywhere,
Yeah. So California is what they call a bellwether state. Usually things start there, then kind of spread out.
Exactly.
But if it's compliant in California, that means it's going to be compliant anywhere else because they have the most stringent regulations probably on planet Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very...
And it takes more money and research on your side to be that compliant.
Exactly.
And if your competitors aren't there, then you're way ahead of the curve.
Now, thank you for mentioning that, because back in the late 90s, 1995 and onwards, we started getting the warnings to ease down on the VOCs,
Yep, I remember those days.
Yeah, and they had a limit at 2005, you had to stop it,
I remember that year too, yeah.
I became compliant almost 1998.
Wow,
Way
ahead of the curve.
But that was, at the time, a little bit negative for me.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't burn your nose, people didn't think it was good enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
I used to say, no, this is good. And then later on, now people come up to me and say, you know what? People love your product because I tell them that's green and it smells good. So people started appreciating. In those days, it had to burn your nose.
Yeah, I remember
it had
those
to
days.
smell bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now it helps us. In other states, We do some OEM factories that don't even have as a state enforced VOC compliance, and that put us ahead of the other competition because the factory cares for their workers.
Sure.
So I mean, imagine this, Mike. You know, you work in a garage all day long.
Yeah.
And you're breathing these chemicals.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
No, it's going to kill you.
That's what I'm saying. So we prefer not to use those. In fact, if I give you a tour of our factory, you will smell. It's like you're walking down in an office, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I care about the environment and also people's health. So
that's something that has not been true of other companies in our history. But I have met detailers that because of their constant exposure to chemicals become what's called chemical sensitive, and they have to quit the industry. So that's their thing, their passions for, but now they got to go find something else to do because they can't be around the chemicals. So with your chemicals, you've already taken care of that. You've made them safe for the environment and safe for us.
Yes.
But let's just real quickly, let's bring this back to the compounds and polishes, because mostly about this video, I think it was important for you to share that unlike other companies, you start with raw materials, you're a chemist, you create the abrasive formulations for all your own products, and that's what separates you from everybody else.
That's great.
And if you've never tried any of the 3D products, then this is your chance to get some from Autogeek.com, because we carry the complete line.
Yes, you do.
And I think after you use any of them, whether you're in a body shop doing heavy compounding, if you're in the detailing world doing correction work, or just doing one-step cleaner wax type work, you're going to love these products because, as you mentioned, the abrasives cut well, they cut fast, they cut correctly. The emulsions, they buff, a long buffing cycle without drying up on you. You use less, and they're not going to leave the hidden swirls and scratches caused by fillers and other products, so the results you get are the true and accurate results. Save time, save money, work better, work smarter.
Something just to finish off on the cost-wise, some people measure like, oh, this is like X number of dollars, oh, this is cheaper. Okay, if we put a little bit like this versus keep on doing that, how much cheaper is this one to go?
Yeah.
Every time you do this, you double in the cost, you know?
Yeah, so concentrated, would that be a good word?
Yeah, I would say efficacy, you know?
Efficiency. Yeah. Okay.
In chemistry world, they say efficacy, you know, but it's also efficiency is the right word, of course. So you use more potent, let's say, products, you know, to do the job.
Potent, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So and this is also key before we wrap this up, is a lot of times when you watch a video, you're talking to talking heads, is what we're called in the industry, but this guy is actually not only the founder, he is the chemist, and he just gives you the lowdown on how he makes his products, unique to the industry. To get any of these products, go to Autogeek.com. For more videos like these or how-tos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Before we go, though, here's one thing, is you got to dump that back in your bottle. Well, you know, I'll get this little bit back into my bottle.
How do you put the toothpaste back into the tube, huh?
Very slowly in our case.
Very slowly.